Grizzly bears are one of the largest land animals in the world and a pure apex predator. Because of this reason, many people have since tried to tame them and make them their pet. Having one of the deadliest predators in the world constantly around humans is a recipe for disaster, as you're about to find out. In today's episode, we go over 3 times a trained bear turned on humans, each of them caught entirely on camera. Hit that like button and subscribe right now. These 3 stories will shock you. Welcome to Final Affliction. Grizzlies are one of the scariest creatures that you could face in the wilderness. These giant animals with muscular bodies would make most people's blood run cold encountering one in the wild. Grizzly bears are extremely dangerous animals who possess immense physical strength and a bite force of almost 1,000 pounds per square inch. Luckily, humans aren't the grizzly's usual food source, and the majority of grizzly bear encounters end with the bear walking away peacefully. Grizzly bear attacks are usually a response to fear or feeling threatened, and just like humans, grizzly bears don't like to be surprised. In today's story, we'll be talking about the 4-year-old stunt bear named Rocky. Rocky was born and raised to perform staged attacks for the big screen with his trainer and Hollywood stunt double, Randy Miller. Rocky was also everywhere on the Discovery and National Geographic channels, among other appearances he made. But it seemed he was most famous for his appearance in the 2008 blockbuster film Semi-Pro, where he starred alongside Hollywood funny man Will Ferrell. The movie depicted the two wrestling one-on-one on screen. However, 7 weeks away from the release of the film, Rocky had gained the spotlight. This time it was for all the wrong reasons. This is the tragedy of Rocky the Stunt Bear and the unfortunate death of Stephen K. Miller. Stephen K. Miller was born on May 6, 1968, and was widely known as an American animal trainer, wrangler, and stunt double who had an unfortunate encounter with Rocky the Bear while making a promotional video. Miller had worked as a trainer at Predators in Action, an animal training facility operated by his paternal cousin, Randy Miller, who trains wild and exotic animals for film and television appearances. At the time of his death, Stephen was not working as a trainer, but was attempting to shoot a promotional video where he would perform a bear wrestling stunt supervised by Randy. Stephen Miller was also an experienced animal trainer who had worked for Predators in Action for several years before leaving to pursue other business ventures. He was very experienced with bears, having helped Randy raise and train a previous bear named Dakota. Rocky was a well-trained animal and had been performing on screen without any issues, and on the day of the incident, April 22, 2008, while filming Stephen's promotional video at the Predators in Action facility, Miller was killed by none other than Rocky. Stephen had asked to be filmed wrestling Rocky for the advertisement, something Rocky has done numerous times before. However, this stunt had always been performed by his cousin Randy, someone active with Rocky on a daily basis. Stephen had not been involved in training Rocky at all, and through the eyes of Rocky, he was basically a stranger. The plan was to first take some shots of Stephen and Rocky casually standing next to each other, and then later the staged wrestling match would begin. However, during the initial shots, Rocky stood up in his trained wrestling posture and suddenly began the staged attack too early. He had caught Stephen completely off guard, without his arm raised in the proper defensive position they'd planned. Stephen's quick movements from being caught off guard by Rocky triggered the bear's animal instincts to kick in, and Rocky went into a full-blown attack mode. Randy instantly knew his cousin was in trouble and rushed into action. He hit Rocky with a cane trying to make him let go of Stephen, but according to a later statement made by Randy, the action might have unwittingly escalated the bear attack even further. The 7.5-foot-tall, 700-pound bear, in a sharp burst of aggression, bit Stephen several times on his neck, face, and torso, and after a brief struggle that lasted only about 10 seconds, the attack was put to end after Rocky's trainer squirted him with pepper spray. The entire incident was caught on camera, but is too graphic to show on YouTube. As seen on the video, Steven initially regained himself and ran to safety off-screen, appearing to be unharmed, but suddenly he collapsed to the ground no less than a minute after the attack. Sadly, Steven was dead. Randy and his crew at the Predators in Action compound rushed to his cousin's aid, still hoping for the best and unaware that Steven was already gone. They did everything they could to resuscitate him while they waited desperately for the ambulance to arrive. It was later discovered that Rocky had pierced his jugular vein and carotid artery. An autopsy was later conducted where they discovered that Steven died within minutes of the attack from blood loss. Following Steven Miller's death, the California Department of Fish and Game initiated a probe into the events of the attack with the intent of eventually deciding whether or not Rocky would be euthanized. People from the Ethical Treatment of Animals, also known as PETA for short, and other animal rights groups who've long protested the use of wild animals in films had called for Rocky to be spared. They wanted him to be allowed to retire to a zoo or another similar facility. It was later revealed on the National Geographic Channel program Grizzly Face to Face: Hollywood Bear Tragedy that the coroner's office and the California Department of Fish and Game ruled Miller's death accidental and did not order that the bear be euthanized. However, Rocky was required to live under restrictions and was no longer able to have contact with persons other than his trainers. He could no longer be exhibited or used for film or TV work. Despite this travesty, Randy described Rocky as loving, affectionate, friendly, and an overall safe bear. In Grizzly Face to Face, Randy Miller has also stated that he planned to continue working with Rocky and try to get the restrictions lifted because he believed that Steven would have wanted that. In 2012, the California Fish and Game Commission considered whether to lift the restrictions on Rocky's permit to allow him to work again in the state of California. According to Randy and Rocky's legal team, new safety protocols had been put in place. Other animal trainers and experts had supplied testimony that Rocky was not dangerous, and a petition drive had also shown that many people from around the world supported his return to work. The U.S. Department of Agriculture had cleared him to work, with the only remaining restrictions being in California, the location of most available work for Rocky. Following a hearing on October 3, 2012, the commission decided not to remove Rocky's permit restrictions because Rocky wasn't the only stunt bear who attacked a human. A G-clad Russian animal trainer and a trained circus bear named Asaya appeared on a Polish local morning television show. For undetermined reasons, with speculation pointing to smell, the bear then attacked the seated woman and then a man who came to her assistance. The trainer and the bear first pose in seemingly friendly fashion when the bear looks over and sees a stranger sitting closer than he expected. Suddenly and without warning, the bear launches himself onto the woman, clawing and biting at her body. The trainer immediately strikes the bear, to no avail. The bear then turns on another man rushing in to save her, pinning him to the floor. The trainer in a G then attempts a guillotine of sorts on the bear, while the man on the bottom clings to the trainer in fear. Eventually, the bear is separated from the man, careens into a studio camera, nearly toppling it over, and comes to a rest by a wall, looking far more startled, even frightened, than aggressive. Thankfully, unlike the last story, this bear was declawed and muzzled, so the pair suffered only scrapes, bruising, and fear. As too often happens in human-animal interactions, it was the bear who ended up harmed. It was put down. If a bear attacks a human, it makes international news. But if a bear is pulled into the human world and acts like a bear, it is put down. A bear had also attacked a TV presenter in the 80s after she sneaked up behind it on a show about how dangerous wild animals can be. Prior to the attack, Banya the bear was constantly being fed treats to try and keep it in line. The animal, wearing a red and yellow skirt and hat, was being looked after by his female handler in a red flamenco costume. The audience can be heard cooing as Banya performs a few simple turns and starts to look more like a giant cuddly toy than a wild animal. But then a young woman presenting the show approaches Banya from behind for a stroke. She touches her lightly, but perceiving a threat, Banya instantly whirls around and lashes out with her huge claws. The bear's claws get stuck in the woman's clothing and she crashes down to the floor. Banya does not seem interested in pursuing the fight as her handler pulls her away. The woman, who manages to get up on her own and does not have any visible injuries, only says, "I am sorry." Although bears look cute and cuddly, these stories just go to show that even fully trained bears can react in unexpected ways, no matter the setting. Just because a bear has been friendly around people hundreds of times, at any moment its wild instincts can kick back into gear. Next time you see a YouTube short of someone wrestling a bear or keeping one as a pet, understand that at any moment that bear could snap, and that person could meet their terrifying final affliction.